Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
This is Locker Gnome's Brandon Wirtz with the latest Xbox gaming news. Homefront is shipped for Xbox 360 and PS3. While some would say that it's THQ's answer to Battlefield or Call of Duty, it actually plays more like the old Dynamix Tribes 2. Homefront's most popular game mode, Ground Control, pits two teams of 16 against each other in a domination-style match to control 3 control points. The longer you hold the control points, the more points your team earns. Winning a round moves the field forwards or backwards towards your objectives. Basically a best 2 out of 3 scenario. Ideally, teams would communicate with each other, break into small groups, and each of them would attempt to control a control point. What more likely happens is snipers kill a few people, unlock a vehicle, devastate a bunch of people, unlock a helicopter, and win the round. This is mainly due to the level design. The levels are large, open, have lots of places for cover, but have very few choke points or close quarters combat scenarios. So while you can play with the light machine gun and do a great deal of damage at close range, for the most part, that's only useful in the first couple of seconds of a round, when you can run towards a control point, gun down the other person who arrived at the control point, and then move on to sniping to control the control points thereafter. Homefront's leveling system is different from Call of Duty's leveling system in that, unlike Call of Duty, where you unlock different guns that allow you to customize to your personal game style, Homefront weapons simply get better as you go along, giving you more advantage on the field. While there are some differences in the amount of recoil in this game is so limited that it doesn't really matter whether or not a gun has more or less recoil. The accuracy tends to be about the same. There's simply amount of damage per bullet and the fire rate of the bullets. Everything else is about the same per guns. Many people wanted Homefront to be Call of Duty on bigger maps with more players. In truth, Homefront is much more like Halo with modern-day weapons. The game is less about the first-person shooter aspect and probably a lot more about the vehicle aspect of the game. Battle points allow you to unlock vehicles to play with on the level. The team that unlocks the most vehicles tends to be the team that wins. You can win the game without calling in vehicles, but for the most part, the team that has the most helicopters wins the round. Homefront is certainly a faster-paced game than Call of Duty. There's no camping, there's nowhere to hide particularly. Without there being a whole lot of buildings or cover, you're mostly forced to run, hide behind a rock, shoot at somebody, run some more, and hide behind a rock, and hope not to get taken out by a tank or a helicopter or a drone along the way. Because of the faster pace, I feel that there's less adrenaline playing Homefront than playing Call of Duty. Because you tend to not live as long, your life doesn't feel as valuable. You don't feel incented to stay alive in the game. If you die, you simply come back a few seconds later. The only loss is battle points. And those battle points still accrue whether you've lived or died. You just don't get kill streak awards. So you can actually earn battle points faster by running into the fray, tossing a bunch of grenade spam, dying, and then coming back in a larger vehicle. Homefront's graphics just aren't as good either. You don't feel like you're in a virtual world. There's no walking up to a person and saying, wow, he looks really like a person. The characters look kind of Halo-ish. They wear more modern, futuristic suits. They all kind of look alike. And there's no personality. And they don't vary from level to level. For me, this makes it harder to distinguish between friendlies and enemies at a glance. Instead, you're looking at the targeting rectangle to tell whether or not it's red or green. The Koreans versus the Americans doesn't really show up. I can't just look at it and say, I'm a Korean or I'm an American, and have the soldiers look that much different unless you're standing right on top of them, at which point you're dead. As a result, rather than looking at what the player looks like to determine whether you're going to shoot at them, you're mostly looking at whether the target rectangle turns red or green, and then deciding to shoot. This just isn't as immersive experience as in other games. Overall, Homefront is okay, but if I were going to pick which I was going to spend my money on, a DLC for Halo or Call of Duty, I'd probably spend money on the DLC rather than shelling out the $60 for a new game.